ساکرامنتو و یا مهاجر آمدن به ایالات متحده امریکا، چی خدمات دولت برایشان انجام داده میتونه و یا چی خدمات بعضی ریسیتلمنت ایجنسی هایی که هست در ساکرامنتو برایشان مهیا کرده میتونه. سال قبل ما با دفتر ساکرامنتو فود بانک مصاحبه داشتیم با خانم جنیوی که معلومات زیادتر برای افغان‌های ما داد که زیادتر افغان‌ها از خدماتشان استفاده کردن. امسال که سر از تاریخ 2 فوریه که امروز هست، ما برنامه تازه را آغاز کردیم که هر هفته یکی از نماینده‌های دولتی و غیر دولتی را میخواهیم این مصاحبه داشته باشیم تا با دوستان محترم معلومات بده. آقای لوک با دفتر IRC کار میکنه، در بخش کریر پاتوی هست. کریر پاتوی برنامه هست که شما میتونید وظیفه دریافت بکنین و این برنامه هست که شما میتونید که در بخشی که شما در افغانستان کار کردین در اینجا سرتیفیکیشنتان بگیرین و در این بخش دوباره کار بکنین. ما بر اونا ایمیل روی کردیم، اونا دعوت پذیرفتن. ساعت 12 بجه بعد از 7 دقیقه در برنامه حضور خواهد پیدا کردن با آقای محمد حکیم صابر، رئیس دانشگاه صابر در افغانستان که هست و فعلا هم به ایالات متحده امریکا آمدن و یک کارشناس سیاسی و مسائل اجتماعی هست. اونا هم مهمان برنامه خواهد بودن و تمام دوستایی که برنامه رو میبینین به زبان انگلیسی و دری هست، لطفاً با دوستانتان شریک بسازین تا که اونا هم بتونن از خدمات کریر پاتوی IRC استفاده بکنن. از سال 2018 به این طرف و ده ها افغان ما در بخش کریر پاتوی IRC رفتن اپلای کردن و سرتیفیکیشن یا تخصص در رشته خود گرفتن که فعلا کار میکنن، یا در بخش گارد بودن یا در بخش منابع بشری وظیفه دریافت کردن یا در بخش های شاخه دیگه. اما این بار خود محصول برنامه کریر پاتوی یا کاریابی IRC رو ما دعوت کردیم که آقای لو که بعد از 5 دقیقه خواهد اومد و صحبت خواهد داشت. دوستای افغانه که اگر سوال دارین لطفاً در کامنت بنویسین تا اونا سوالاتتان جواب بده و بعضی معلومات و شماره تلفن و ایمیل آدرس هایی است که با شما شریک میکنه که اگر شما علاقمندی داشته باشین در برنامه کریر پاتوی اپلای بکنین و در رشته که در افغانستان داشتین و در مون رشته دیگه وظیفه دریافت بکنین، شما میتونین که نوت بگیرین و از این خدماتشان استفاده بکنین. ما امریکا آمدیم با دست خالی و همه ما دمی فکر و چرت هستیم که چگونه ما از این حالت بیرون برایم همون رشته‌ای که در افغانستان داشتیم در مون رشته خود دوباره وظیفه پیدا بکنیم. اما کار ساده نیست که وقتی که ما امریکا میاییم باید اسناد اصلی خود ثبت بکنیم و اجازه کار بگیریم و دوباره میتونیم که بعدا میتونیم باشین که در اون بخش شما وظیفه اپلای بکنین، درخواست بگیرین و وظیفه کار بگیرین. اما یک شرایط خاصی که در ایالات متحده امریکا و به خصوص ایالات کالیفرنیا داره، شما مجبور هستین در هر رشته‌ای که شما کار میکنین در کالیفرنیا باید جواز رسمی یا لیسانس از ایالات کالیفرنیا از استیت داشته باشین. اگر شما گارد هستین باید از لیسانس گاردی را بگیرین. اگر شما میخواین که در بخش منابع بشری کار بکنین باید سرتیفای شوین و سرتیفیکیشن از استیت باید بگیرین. اگر شما بخواین در بخش پریکورمنت یا خریداری کار بکنین شما مجبور هستین که سرتیفیکیشن از استیت بگیرین. همچنان اگه آشپزی یا حتی آشپز رو میخواین به صفت آشپز در رستوران ها کار بکنین، باید از بخش صحی کالیفرنیا شما جواز داشته باشین. یکی جواز رستوران است، یکی جواز آشپز است. گارسون، خیاط، ولدینگ کار، نردبان یا بخش انجینری، ساختمانی. باید یک نفری که یک فورکلیفت که میچلانه باید از جواز داشته باشه. که بعضی خدمات هست که IRC مهیا کرده با افغانهای محترم که به امریکا میاین و به خصوص در ساکرامنتو میاین، که بسیار سوالای زیاد هست که از اونا باید پرسان بکنیم. اما این به دست شما ها هست که شما چگونه میتونین به اونا دسترسی پیدا بکنین، با معلومات از این معلومات استفاده بکنین. لطفاً این برنامه را با تمام دوستانتان شریک بسازین تا که ما بتونیم که تمام نظریات و سوالات دوستان را داشته باشیم و با اونا شریک بسازیم. میدانم که کار ساده نیست، اما دوستایی که به زبان انگلیسی آگاهی ندارن، آقای محمد حکیم صابر، اونا هم حضور خواهم داشتن در برنامه. اونا به زبان دری برای شما تشریح خواهد کرد که برنامه IRC چقدر مفید است در جامعه و جامعه. بعد از 2 دقیقه اونا لایف خواهد آمدن در برنامه از طریق زوم هسته، اما ما کوشش میکنیم که یک کار به اوانای خود بکنیم که از این حالت بیرون براییم و از تمام خدماتی که در جامعه هست و از طریق دولت امریکا برای مهاجرین و به خصوص برای سویا تهیه شده، از این باید استفاده بکنیم. چون که استفاده کردن از این برنامه بودجه ها هست، چی خوبش که از این برنامه استفاده بکنیم که بودجه ها که میگیرن پس دوباره مسترد نشه. ما در حدود چند دقیقه Hey Luke.
Naweed, hello there.
Hey, how are you doing?
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. How are you?
Yeah, sorry, I started like 10 minutes before to give a little bit review to Afghan about the IRC program. So thank you so much. You accept our invitation to the Cobble to Sacramento show. Soon become a Kausar TV station in Sacramento, the first Afghan immigrants TV station in Sacramento. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. I give a little bit review to our Afghan colleagues about IRC program, how useful it is. But Muhammad Saber Hakim will be in the show also. He will say something about his experience to Afghans, how career pathway program is good. So now you can give us a little bit brief about IRC and career pathway. That will be good.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks so much for having me on, and congratulations to the success of your show. I think it speaks to, really the Afghan community here in Sacramento, but also in the U.S. So yeah, I'm excited to talk a little bit about career development specifically for refugees here in the United States, and a little bit about the work that the IRC does here in Sacramento, but also IRC has 26 different offices across the US. And so it's very possible that there are other offices that are relevant to other viewers of yours. A little bit just about myself. I started working with refugees about a decade ago, originally in New York with Nepalese refugees. And then 5 years ago, I started over here in California. Really, we started our career development programs with the goal of meeting the advanced skills and really goals of the refugee clients that we serve here in Sacramento, because the truth is that special immigrant visa holders come to the US with a really exceptional amount of skills and previous professional work experience. And sometimes there are additional services that are required to help take that experience and make sure that it's relevant here in the US. So that's really our goal of career development programming at IRC, is to work with individuals in specific sectors and really identify and harness that work experience and then make that applicable and relevant to employers here in Sacramento. So that's our goal at IRC and career development. I'd say in general, the International Rescue Committee serves refugees, immigrants, and other low-income individuals in stabilizing their lives here in the US. And then our goal is also to help individuals reach financial security, really be successful here in the US. That's my goal. Personally, I've always wagered or measured my own success by the amount of clients I have that make more money than I do. That's what matters to me. That's what I want, is the refugees that I support to be successful.
Mr. Hakim is on too. Hi.
Hakeem, hello.
Hi. Hey, good morning or good afternoon, whatever. How are you doing?
Good. Great to be on.
Oh, thank you so much. It's good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. I'm not sure for you, Naweed, but Hakeem, I see your screen sideways.
Yeah, it's on sideways.
Oh yeah, so I need to change it?
Yeah, if you better flip like that.
You might need to flip it
sideways. Sure, I can do that.
Yeah, so that's so great. Well, I'm receiving a call from even other states and other county in California. They were asking about career pathway.
Yep.
I said that, okay, we have a show today, so you can hear from Mr. Luke about it.
Yeah, so I could go into more detail about the type of sectors that we work in and all that. Okay, great. Well, like I mentioned, we started career development at IRC 4 years ago. And really our goal in our career development is to work with individuals in one-on-one settings. That's really our goal, to provide that really quality coaching. There's, of course, that's perfect, Hakeem. We can see
perfect.
Yeah. For the individuals that we work with and serve, everyone has a different plan. Everyone comes to the US with different experience and really different strengths, but also maybe challenges in finding their job. So for everybody that we work with, we're going to go through a specific plan with action steps to really eventually reach that ultimate goal of getting employed in your career, but also going through everything that might be involved in that. So right now we work with individuals in the construction field, engineering, finance, health, which includes the certified nursing assistant and medical assistant, currently pharmacy technician as well as transportation to be a CDL driver, and then finance is in there as well. And so a pretty large array of sectors, but of course not everything. So we haven't worked with lawyers, for example, people getting into law enforcement. There's just some areas that we don't support because we do want to make sure that we know everything about that field before we would advise somebody in their career and going into that field. And so once we meet with somebody and enroll them, we go through a career development plan, and then we're going to do what's called bridge programming. And what we're really trying to do is create the bridge between where somebody is at this time to where they're going to be successful in a technical training and then also in their career. So this is where, to me, the change happens in the individuals that we work with. And that means understanding, not understanding, the correct way to work in the workforce or the correct way to, work with an employer, but just the US context, right? So many of the individuals we work with were highly successful in Afghanistan, and there's minor differences in how the workforce is different here in the US, and knowing those small differences and acting accordingly is really the biggest key to somebody's long-term success. Of course, we can help somebody find a job originally in the US and a job in their field, but the next 10, 15, 20 years of their career is really going to be built out of their understanding of working with people in the US context in the workforce. There's a lot of really small examples for that. I would say just for a few, usually when I start working with clients in interviewing, people talk about we, in this project, we did this, we were able to accomplish this. Because in most cultures outside of the US, there's the collective whole and that focus on we as a unit. In the US, I always advise people, when you're talking about something that you did, I did this, I accomplished this, never talk about your team, right? And so there's just these small little changes that just happen to make a really big difference. And so we go through interview prep, preparation on networking. Networking in the US is so difficult when you might not know anybody in the US, right?
Yeah.
But we know that 9 out of 10 positions are filled just by word of mouth, just of knowing the right person. And so it's really important that you have an organization on your side. We spend a lot of time reaching out to employers and talking about the strengths of our clients. So that's really important. But also being able to do that yourself, being able to call up an employer in just 30 seconds, following up on a job application is really, really essential. And then we'll go over some other things like resume development. The truth is recruiters in the US receive 500 applications per one position. That's crazy. Most recruiters, and now that I'm also hiring, I see this myself, look at a resume for an average of 30 seconds. You can't get much information in 30 seconds, right? And so it's really essential that curriculum vitae or that resume be short, concise, one page, have all the information and be really relevant. So these are just some of the things that we go over. But then after that bridge programming, after those trainings, we make sure that our clients get into short-term credential training. Really the goal of pursuing a training that could be 1 month to 3 months, maybe 4 months at the top, is to show US experience. Unfortunately, employer bias exists. Unfortunately, and it's not always learned bias, right? It's not always that some employers angry at somebody for not being from the US. Sometimes they just see work experience and see it's not from the US. They don't understand what it means. They don't understand that it is relevant here in the US. And so having that, even if it's a short-term credential in the US, can be really meaningful and impactful on that resume. And then once that credential is done, we just spend a lot of time working with clients in employer engagement. That could be employers that we contact or employers that we have mentors in, volunteers that have worked with those employers before. And usually, generally, when we talk about working with resumes, we talk about higher retention rates, right? That's measured study that refugees stay in positions longer, and that's more valuable to employers. But we also talk about value. That a lot of refugees, SIVs, come to the US looking to restart or continue their careers, and they want success for themselves and their families, and they're willing to take an entry-level position in their career to do that. And that means that employer might be bringing somebody on that has 15, 20 years of experience, but is really willing to start on the entry level in their position. What value that could be for the employer in the long term, right? So that's a little bit about our career development and just some of my thought process when working with clients.
Yeah, like Mr. Hakim is here too. So many people are so confused how to apply, which source, which contact number they should have, which email they should send an email, and how much that program going to cost. Is it free or not?
Yeah, so I'll talk about, I guess, our enrollment processes and just with an update on that, and then the actual cost of what we're providing as well. So with our enrollments, currently our enrollments are on hold until April, just because we have so many individuals enrolled, and also because we're working on receiving extra funding so that we can ensure that the individuals that enroll with us aren't spending a lot on their actual technical training. Everything outside of that technical training that IRC provides is free. I think that that's true for any of our programs where we wouldn't have clients pay for our time for the consultations that we provide. We would never charge for that. We are a nonprofit, so we're not able to charge for that. The one area that clients would pay for would be the technical training. And usually people can expect to pay somewhere around 5, maybe 10% of that training, depending on how much it costs. So for example, for our commercial driver's license program right now, those trainings can cost several $1,000s. Clients might pay a couple $100s originally, and then upon completion and receiving that actual position, they could apply and receive that money that they spent and receive it back from IRC. So in that case, it's called a shared cost, where they actually get their funds back that they originally paid for. And that just makes sure that clients are invested in the program. Most studies that show when somebody, puts $100, $200 towards something, they're more invested and more likely to complete it. But we don't actually take any of those funds into our program. It all goes towards the actual credential cost. But for the most part, I'd say the majority of our clients don't have to pay anything for the actual technical training, because we do receive grants that we're able to put towards actually, providing to those training providers. And then we also do a pretty good job of working with training providers to explain, just like we do with employers, why working with refugees can be such a benefit to them, why working with the Afghan community or SIVs can be so advantageous. So often they'll give our clients a discount in the actual training cost. So that's something that we've really enjoyed from the community, is a lot of support in that way.
Yeah, I received like more than 37 questions. Just 29 of them is from Afghan women in Sacramento.
Great.
So the most of Afghan women want to apply for career pathway program, but they heard that from outside, if they apply for career pathway program, it costs like several $1,000s, and they have to pay that money. Or once they finish the training, they have to pay from their salary. And first, they don't know how to apply, or they're eligible or not, because their English skill is not good. Right. As the career pathway have a special class of ESL to get them ready for the test or for the reason.
Yeah, I guess first I would just want to address the question of clients paying for career development services. There are, in Sacramento and other cities, private organizations where you would, as a professional, go and pay, and they would help develop you. They'd help, choose classes, help kind of set up your career. That's not IRC. We are a nonprofit. We can't charge clients for any services that we provide. The only things that somebody might pay for is a training cost, in which case we'd pay for the majority of it. They might need to pay, $100 to $200 to actually enroll in it, but they're paying the training provider. There's never an instance where clients would write checks to us or provide IRC with funds. That would be absolutely, inappropriate use of our funds and wouldn't be really allowed with what we do. I'm pretty excited that out of the, several $100,000s that we've spent in getting clients into programs, very, very little of that has actually been anything that clients have had to pay for those programs themselves. And so, yeah, that would be first off what I'd want to say. As far as, supporting refugee women, Afghan women, we've been really successful in some of our fields, healthcare fields, the certified nursing assistant, medical assistant fields. I'd say 45% of our clients in the healthcare fields are women that have been really successful as well. We're seeing really high employment rates in the medical field in general and credential rates. But we know that we need to do more, because ideally we'd have equity where, 50% or however many of the individuals we enroll in our program are really at an equitable breakdown between Afghan men and Afghan women. And so what we have started or ran last year would be a program kind of to get people ready for career development at IRC. And so that's called the Family Self-Sufficiency Program. And it addresses what we've heard from the community is the biggest barrier to professional development, to employment for women, which is driver's licenses. And so last year we sponsored a little bit over a dozen women to go through a program where they get driver's training while getting employment training, and then are able to receive those licenses, start driving as they enter work. So that's really an effective program. We have that this year as well. And then I'm also excited to announce that we're starting a program with Los Rios Community College District, specifically for refugees entering community college. So, and this is actually with a partnership with the Sacramento Food Bank Family Services as well. And we'll have more information. It's a very new program, so we will have more information in the future. But this will include ESL offered at the different community colleges and be able to basically assist individuals in navigating their pathway in community college, what they want to achieve, but also help in finishing, right? 2 years can be a long time to only be working part-time, and there's a lot of people that eventually leave. And so that's something that we're really committed to, and we'll have more information in the future on that program.
Yeah. So one of the biggest problem is ESL. So also I'm always sending out message. You have to know English to apply for career pathway. Or some of people report that you have to have a job to apply for career pathway program. So I said, well, we don't know that. So Mr. Luke should answer. Is it right or not?
Sure. So I'd say in starting with ESL, it absolutely depends on the sector that somebody's interested in. If somebody has really strong skill sets, the technical skills, then that English component might not be as necessary. So when we look at maybe the CNA, Certified Nursing Assistant, that could be a good fit for somebody with lower English where they're conversational, but able to take in some of the medical terms required. And we do have English assessments for that. So it's definitely worthwhile to apply. But I'd say if the English isn't to the point where you could see yourself successfully completing the job, then I wouldn't apply for the career development program. At this point, I might focus on English first, or focus on working English. So maybe starting a job and focusing on English on the job. For something like finance, usually that does require more professional communications, professional English. So that might be something that I'd also wait until you feel confident in sending off professional emails and really understanding grammar structures and those kind of things. As far as the other question, which is kind of around the actual employment of somebody before enrolling, we do prefer candidates that are employed. And so it's not 100% a requirement, but for the most part, we absolutely prefer candidates who have been employed in the US before. Why? Why does it actually matter? Well, there's two reasons. The first is if somebody's enrolling in our program, they're probably going to be putting a good amount of time in the program, meeting with us, meeting with mentors, eventually going through that technical training. And we want to make sure that they're able to support themselves. We don't want somebody to work themselves out of a job or be in this program and not able to provide for their family at the same time. That's really got to be the first priority, is paying rent, paying bills. If somebody's not working, they're probably going to eventually need assistance to get stabilization employment. And we really try to focus on, employment in the career over stabilization employment. Luckily, we work with about 300 refugees, immigrants a year to get a first job in the US. And so those are always programs to first enroll in. The other reason that we really prefer that somebody is working in the US, or at least has had work experience in the US, is there's just so much that you learn when you get your first job in a new country. When I was working with refugees, I lived in Nepal for a year. I was in the Peace Corps and I was working in Nepal. And man, I made a lot of mistakes. And I'll tell you, I'm glad that I didn't make those mistakes working for the IRC in Nepal, or really working in my career, because a lot of them were just little things, little embarrassing things about how punctuality works in that country. But you don't want the first job that you get, a job that you've worked for 6 months to get, and then you start in your career and make one little error, maybe show up 10 minutes late to your first day. That's going to be a huge stain on your working relationship with your boss in the US. And that might just be something that you learn when you first start working in the US. And so we really do want candidates to have a couple of months at least experience working in the US, learning about everything that goes into holding down a job, how difficult it can be, managing your family, managing expenses, managing transportation and bills while working, before we work towards that ultimate goal of getting a job in your field and that dream job.
Yeah. So the most of the recently SIVs who came from Afghanistan, they have an army background. They work on a field, shoulder to shoulder with army and the first line. So they're interested to apply for security guard or law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the requirement for them? But most of them are shooters. Like they cannot speak English very well, but they know the job, how to do it very well.
Yep.
So what that required?
Yeah, definitely a good question. I'd say I've spent a good amount of time researching the best way for somebody to take their experience overseas, specifically in law enforcement or working with U.S. forces, and making that relevant and into a career here in the U.S. The challenge is there's really two different pathways that somebody could go. The first would be security. Security, we have assisted clients with career development and security before. We're not doing it currently right now. And the reason is while a guard card is required, so while you do need to be credentialed in the US to work in security, the professional pathway forward can be difficult. And we don't really want to develop careers for people that aren't going to lead to long, kind of fruitful careers where somebody really feels like they're really relevant, really powerful in their field. And I'd say in that sense, that's where we come into some challenges with the security field, where somebody might go through a credential. It could take really 3 to 4 months to process. It can take a while. And then to start in the field, they're probably going to be starting temporary and on call. That can be a challenge when somebody's, in their first couple months or first year in the US, to leave your family to, just respond as is, with transportation. And, those can just be some issues people run into, not having kind of steady hours that they can depend on. And also the pay isn't overly high for those positions. So usually if you're taking an on-call position, you'd expect, $17, $18 an hour. Usually we're seeing around $14 an hour for most security positions. I'm not trying to dissuade somebody from entering security. In some senses, I've seen it work out really well for individuals who maybe start as a security guard and then work their way up and then start maybe dispatching other guards and work for a company, but that takes time. And that skill set is more HR and a little bit less about actual knowledge of security. The other route could be law enforcement. That takes time and usually requires going to, police academy, which would be not a huge endeavor, but would definitely be something that might prohibit a lot of people from entering it. The tests are extremely difficult for people that are brand new to the US. So that's just something that does take time. Often it can take, sometimes a bachelor's, depending on what you want to get into, which might mean that somebody would need to get their degree evaluated. And so security isn't something that we offer right now, but potentially the pathway could be through security and then working as a guard and then working in dispatch. But I haven't honestly seen a lot of SIVs be able to be overly successful in that security field. And it's a little tough.
Yep, like I apply. So I ended up to start a show and work. I don't know. Yep,
yeah, so you can start work, but it's kind of that question of how dependent are you on that company?
Yep.
What do you want to carry on working with them? And do you want that as a career? So
yeah,
it's a challenge.
And also, most of the people work with the U.S. Embassy as a human resource manager or executive, procurement, or USAID or other construction or American companies in Afghanistan.
Yep.
So as career pathway can provide them like to get a certification on human resource, to become a human resource specialist, to get a job on that field, and how it's possible.
Yeah. I guess to talk about HR, maybe I'd want to hear a little bit more from Hakeem, who's really been successful in that kind of general HR administration. I'd say maybe before I hand it over to you, when we first started working with individuals in career development, we had somebody who spent a lot of time actually taught in Kabul University in Afghanistan to do research and analysis of how we could best serve the SIV population. And what they predicted would be the field of administration, while it's something that SIVs have the most experience in, right? A lot of experience working in NGOs, nonprofits, U.S. forces, and that kind of role of HR and administration. It would be something that would be very difficult to make relevant here in the U.S. or make into a career here in the U.S. The reason being those kind of cross-cultural skills or understanding of the U.S. workforce is amplified much more important in an HR position than it might be in a position which requires more technical skills, like in the healthcare field. And that is something that we've experienced, that it can be really difficult to get somebody in a job in HR here in the U.S. So that's not something that we're supporting as much right now. We're trying to focus a little bit more on those technical, hard skills, which is, I think, good advice for anybody to really think about what you're most proud of in your career and how you can make that something that you sell and really bundle up and work on and sell to employers. But Hakeem, I'd actually really like to hear from you and how you've been able to use your experience to, be successful here in the U.S.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank Luke Johnson with IRC and Naweed Yousufi, a freelance journalist. Thank you so much for having me in your show. Actually, my experience with human resources at Bagram Air Base, which was a U.S. military installation over there in Afghanistan, was when I was recruited there, I wasn't a professional in human resources field. I was like an interpreter, and then they developed me to translator and then human resources section. And I was the HR assistant for several years. I was working over there, and then they developed me to sending me over many countries in order to recruit manpower for them. I was with different countries with different team working over there, and we had some successful jobs. But still, with all those achievements, since I came to the US and I was one of the IRC clients, and then Yana put me to a career pathway program, and I certified with the PHR, which stands for Professional Human Resources. I feel myself much different and much professional in my working field right now. Previously, I was doing things without knowing what I'm doing. But right now, I'm doing it professionally. I know what I'm doing, and I know what I'm working on. So as a point of me, working in a field, being unprofessional means a lot different, and you don't know what you're doing, and you don't feel whether it's useful for the system that you're working. So career pathway program enabled me in order to be a professional, someone who does jobs in professional way and professional manner. So, it is very difficult. It is very challenging environment, but still, since I did it, I'm sure that everybody can do it.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Hakeem. So the all questions which I'm receiving from community right now, it's almost like 7 questions came, all related, which I already asked about. So most of people asking about the contact number, which phone number they should call, and which email address they should send their resume. And if their resume is like a solo, my resume was 12 pages. So it got minimized to the 2 pages. So how to fix their resume and send it to career pathway and to be a candidate on a program?
Yeah, so we are, like I said, currently on hold for enrollments, but when we start again, we'll start in April for the current career program that we have, but sooner for the community college program. So if it's all right to wait on sending that contact info out to keep everyone in a little bit more anticipation, but just to make sure that we have the process to, handle all those enrollments. I'll probably wait a couple weeks before sending that contact info. We're staffing up. We have new staff members that are joining us to really work on this program. So yeah, excited for that. But I would say for if I could give general information, and I do promise to share info on how people can get enrolled. I just don't want to receive a bunch of resumes that we're not yet able to process. And I want to make sure that we reach out to everyone that messages us. But some things that you could start working on really right now, if you're interested in career development for resume work, it should really be a page. And so sometimes that means taking a lot of that out. I could, Noeed, if it's possible, maybe we could share a template with everybody.
That would be good.
But yeah, it should really be a page. I've worked with people that have 30 years of work experience and they're able to get it down to a page. So less is definitely more on that front. But then I'd also say, have that conversation with yourself about what experience you are proud of, what defines you as a professional, but also what you want to continue doing and what, gives you that passion, what you enjoy. For some people, they really love organizing, financial orders, and they're going to be really great in, as an account payroll specialist. Other people really want to work with other people and develop them, and they're going to be excellent in the HR field. So really choose the technical skills of what sets you apart, and then potentially look for ways to develop that skill. That could be, free online trainings in that, or it could be something that you get a, short-term credential on or something like that. But those are, for the most part, probably the best advice that I could give would be, that resume should be a page. And then when you start applying for jobs, the best way to measure, and I've done studies on this myself, your ability to, get a job or get a job for somebody else is not how many applications you send out. It's how many applications you follow up on. That's the biggest one, is finding your elevator pitch, which is 20 seconds. When you hear from an employer, you call and you say, this is me. This is in 10 seconds, my background. This is what I'd like to bring to your company. That follow-up call should be done with every job that you're serious about. And you should really practice it in front of a mirror, for hours. But it's worth it just to have that quick 20-second follow-up. That's so critical. Like I said, people are receiving 500 resumes for a job. If you don't have anything to distinguish yourself, such as, a quick time that you're able to meet with somebody, it's very likely that resume won't be, seriously reviewed.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Luke. Thank you so much. So the programs are coming in next few months.
Yes, yeah. So we're obviously still supporting the 120, 130 clients that we have enrolled right now into career programming. We'll be opening more slots in the next couple of months, and then we'll have some pretty exciting news just for our work with the community colleges also.
Yeah, we are waiting here. So most of people are waiting to hear that news.
Good.
So thank you so much, Mr. Luke. You have anything else to say to Afghanistan community?
Yeah, I would just say on a final note, a lot of what I've been talking about is just, I advise doing this, or this is how we run these programs or these resources. I would just say on a more general note, I've been working with refugees for almost a decade now, and I have seen so many individuals that are so successful and so happy that I remember working with them, and when they were saying, I don't think I can do it, I'm giving up on my career, you know, I'm just going to resort to you know, this job or that job. And so I would just say, when I think about refugees, I think about, especially SIVs, the potential to, you know, have a really great career and life for your family, but also impact here in the U.S. And the U.S. really is in need of strong, you know, individuals who have experience, and that's what the SIV community brings. So don't give up on your careers. Absolutely not. Just know that sometimes it takes time. But your first job's not your last job. And, you know, just keep working up the ladder. There's resources like IRC. There's other resources, you know, Upwardly Global provides a lot of these services online. And so that's a good resource to share as well. But, you know, you definitely have potential. Your work will be relevant, definitely here in the US. So just, you know, find the way or find additional resources to work towards your ultimate plan. But know that there's so many individuals that have come to the US and have just made amazing lives for themselves. And they've started where I think everyone's starting who's listening to this call today.
Yeah, mine took like 3.5 years to become a start my own show. I almost gave up. First interview I told you I'm going to give up. Nope. So I said, no way. I started. Thank you so much, Mr. Luke. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Mr. Hakeem will be here to talk in a little bit to Afghans about the program which you talk. So thank you so much, Mr. Luke. And we are waiting for your news in a couple months. So if you have anything for the community, please share it to us, and we are going to share it to the community.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll definitely be sharing some information. And Hakeem, so good to see you. And I'm glad there's nobody better that could be representing career development and, you know, giving people advice. So I'm so glad that you're on the call. And yeah, I hope that you're able to share a little bit about maybe the challenges that you ran into and, you know, starting professional work and all that. So yeah, very excited for the rest of the call, even though I won't understand it and I won't be on. So thank you all so much. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Luke.
Today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Right, thank you so much.
We'll definitely do that.
Bye. خب آقای حکیم تشکر جان و موضوع داشتین. چی برداشت کردین از سخنهای آقای لوک؟
بسیار تشکر میکنم. اجازه بفرمایید که اولتر از همه سلام احترام به کل جامعه افغانی مقیم ایالات متحده آمریکا، به خصوص مقیم ایالت کالیفرنیا داشته باشم و خوشحال هستم که این برنامه را شما راه اندازی کردین که با توسل به این برنامه آگاهی دهی بکنین در سطح جامعه و برای مردم، خصوص برای کسایی که از یک بخش کاملا متفاوت دنیا به یک بخش کاملا متفاوت دنیا سفر میکنن برای اقامت و برای زندگی و برای آینده و این بسیار مهم است. اگر ما قرار باشه محیط به دو بخش تقسیم بکنیم، یکی محیط کاری است، یکی محیط اجتماعی است. محیط کاری جایی است که شما مجبور هستین که در اونجا به شکل مسلکی برخورد بکنین یا به شکل حرفه‌ای برخورد بکنین. دقیقاً کار را که امروز IRC برای ریفوجی‌ها، برای پناهنده‌ها و برای کسایی که در واقع در اینجا تازه سفر میکنن و در اینجا برای زندگی کردن میان به کالیفرنیا یا در سطح آمریکا، کار کردن در محیط به شکل مسلکی آدم به آرزوهای مطلوب خود میرسانه و در واقع انسان متحول میسازه. خب محیط زندگی یا محیط خصوصی یا محیط اجتماعی بخش‌های یا ابعاد زندگی هستند که او را زیاد آدم میتونه به نحو بدل خود مثلا مدیریت بکنه یا به خواست خود مدیریت بکنه. ولی اگر ما در کار تمرکز بکنیم یا در بخش زندگی کاری تمرکز بکنیم، شما مکلفیت دارین که یک پیش زمینه یا یک اساس مسلکی باید داشته باشید. آنچه که آقای لوک جانسن از دفتر IRC ارائه کردن به نظر من یک فرصت بسیار فوق‌العاده است. همزمان با او یک فرصت بسیار خوب و فوق‌العاده دیگه خود شوی شما از کابل تا ساکرامنتو، from Kabul to Sacramento، بهترین یک برنامه است که در واقع اینمی مسائل را که IRC در واقع انجام میده که بسیار به شکل حرفه‌ای و مسلکی انجام میده، این شما به جامعه پیشکش میکنین. در واقع شما می تولیدات را که IRC انجام میده شما بر جامعه ای را پیشکش میکنین که ببینن که IRC به عنوان یک نهاد غیر انتفاعی کدام کار انجام میده و شما چگونه میتونین از این بهره ببردارین یا بهره بردارین. این بسیار مهم است. همزمان با اون من میخوایم بگویم که چند تا واژه بسیار اساسی را که آقای لوک جانسن استفاده کردن، مثلا creating a bridge. فکر بکنین اگر در خصوص واژه ها یا بازی در واژه ها ما تمرکز بکنیم، creating a bridge یا ساختن یک پل ارتباطی، این در سطح دنیا فکر میکنم مشکل ترین بخش کاری است. بسیار مشکل است برای شما که یک نقطه وصل باشین در مابین یک موضوع یا در مابین یک مطلب یا در مابین یک جامعه یا در یک محیط کاری. در واقع IRC ای کار را میکنه برای ریفوجی ها یا پناهنده هایی که در این شهر زندگی میکنه و شما ای را به نمایش میگذارین یا به پیشکش مردم میرسانین. من در کل اگر قرار باشه که ارزیابی بکنم صحبت های آقای لوک جانسن از دفتر IRC، من میتونم بگویم که برنامه کوریر پاتوی یکی از بهترین، فوق‌العاده ترین و ویژه ترین برنامه‌ای بوده که تا حال ما خودم یکی از کسایی بودیم که در این برنامه اشتراک کردیم. آنچه که من پیشتر به آقای لوک جانسن گفتم، ما سالهای سال در میدان هوایی بگرام امرای اردوی امریکا امی کارهای اداری را انجام میدادیم و به شکل بسیار درست، به شکل بسیار خوب انجام میدادیم، ولی هیچ وقت به شکل حرفه‌ای و مسلکی ما انجام نمیدادیم. ما با مدرک ماستریم از روابط بین الملل علوم سیاسی و با صدها هزارها هموطن دیگه ما با مدارک بسیار بلند علمی تحصیلی کارهای را انجام میدادن، ولی متاسفانه بخش کاری خود یا در زمینه کار خود اکثرا اینا کار نمیکردن. مثلا ما میدیدیم که یک دکتر آمده بود در بخش ترجمه کار میکرد، یک دکتر طب. همزمان با اون مثلا ما دیده بودیم که یک استاد پوهنتون آمده بود مثلا ترجمه میکرد و یا در یک بخش خدمات کار میکرد. وقت IRC در واقع ظرفیت سازی میکنه و ظرفیت انسان را متحول میسازه، ظرفیت بخصوص افغانایی که از طریق SIV یا ریفیوجی یا کیس یا هر وسیله دیگه که به ایالات متحده آمریکا تشریف آورده، اینا زمینه را برشان فراهم میکنن. من فکر میکنم که این بسیار میتونه مؤثر واقع شه برای جامعه افغانی، برای افغان کمیونیتی در خود از این شهر یا ایالت. همزمان با اون چیز دیگه را که آقای لوک جانسن از دفتر IRC ارائه کردن، بحث understanding. در بعض از موارد ما ایرا بحث افهام و تفهیم میگیم یا فهمیدن یک موضوع. شما باور بکنین که بسیاری کسایی را ما دیدیم، ما به عنوان یک کسی که کارمندا داشته در رهبری اداره قرار داشته، بسیاری کارمندای ما در سطح بودن که کار میکردن، خوب کار میکردن، ولی فهمشان از این کاری که انجام میدن به شکل نادرست بود، به شکل درست نبود، به شکل تخصصی نبود. ولی این نهاد و این دفتر با رهبری انسانای متخصص کار را انجام میدن که در واقع افغانا بتونه به وسیله از او خودکفا شوند. وطندارای ما شما با وسیله از او بتونن امرار معیشت بکنن، زندگی خودانه سر و سامان بدن و بر مبنای از او در جامعه به عنوان انسانای مسلکی کار بکنن. این بسیار مهم است. ما اگر در هر کشور دیگه هر وظیفه را انجام دادیم، اونا گذشت. متاسفانه در بسیاری مواردی که ما در افغانستان کار میکردیم بر معیارهای بین المللی استوار نبود. استانداردهای بین المللی چیزی را حکم میکنه که تحقیقات روز که امروز انجام شده، امروز به نمایش کشیده شده و امروز عملی میشه. شما میفهمین که ناهنجاری‌ها، کشیدگی‌های سیاسی، کشیدگی‌های اجتماعی، بافت‌های مختلف اجتماعی در افغانستان به حدی است که بسیاری موارد در کوتاه‌ترین فرصت به دسترس تمام شهروندای افغانستان در سراسر افغانستان نرسه. ولی وقتی ما در امریکا زندگی میکنیم باید بالاترین سطح علم باید ما فرا بگیریم. مثلا یکی از او بخش من میخوایم برای شما بگویم که بالاترین سطح علم یا تحقیقات که صورت میگیره در حوزه علم وقتی انجام میشه با زبان بین‌المللی، با زبان انگلیسی صورت میگیره. افغانای ما که در اینجا حضور به هم میرسانن حداقل باید امو برنامه ESL که شما بسیار به شکل درست پرسیدین و اشاره کردین و آقای لوک جانسن هم او را به شکل درست ارائه کردن، پاسخ دادن. به نظر من بسیار مهم است که اینا حداقل انگلیسی را به شکل علمی تخصصی یاد بگیرن. یاد گرفتن زبان انگلیسی به شکل علمی تخصصی یا اکادمیک از او اینا را قادر به این میسازه که چطور بتونن که سایر بخشای علم، سایر فضای مدرن اینا چطور بتونن کنکاش بکنن و چطور بتونن به او دسترسی پیدا بکنن. منهای از این و غیر از این شما میفهمین که ناممکن است. یاد داشتن انگلیسی در ایالات متحده آمریکا یک امتیاز نیست، ولی همزمان به او ما میخوایم بگویم که یاد داشتن انگلیسی در ایالات متحده آمریکا یک امتیاز بسیار فوق‌العاده است.
بسیار ببخشید گرفتم. آیا ما انگلیسی که در افغانستان صحبت میکنیم و به ایالات متحده آمریکا میگیم تفاوت داره یا نه؟ چرا که ما در افغانستان بریتیش صحبت میکنیم نه انگلیسی. وقتی که جمعیم بسیار واژه‌های از حرف‌های است که متفاوت‌تر است یا ضد نقیص است که استفاده میکنیم. آیا این برنامه ESL که من سوال کردم و آقای جونسن لوک هم جواب دادن به اینا کمک میکنن که می اشتباهات لفظی یا حرفی که استفاده نکنن و سیستم امریکایی حرفا را استفاده بکنن یا نه؟ مثلا در افغانستان ما میگفتیم که پایپ برای جوس، پایپ جوس، اینجا پایپ یک معنای دیگه میته. یا مثلا یک جایی که مثلا من کار بکنم و اگر هم کار خود بگم پایپ بته که من آب و کوکو بنوشم بر اونا یک معنای بسیار خرابه هست که مواد مخدر معنا میته. آیا کلاس های ESL فایده خواهد کرد برشان یا نه؟
در بخش اول سوال شما باید بگویم چون این یک سوال تکنیکی تخصصی رشته زبان و ادبیات است. اگر تنها بحث لهجه باشه لهجه را بسیار فرصت کوتاه میتونن تغییر بدن، ولی اگر بخش معنای واژه ها باشه که به مو شکل که شما گفتین، من فکر میکنم که پروگرام ESL یک زمینه بسیار خوب یا یک پل بسیار خوبی است که با توسل به این افغانای ما بتونن از این استفاده بکنن و به شکل تخصصی اجتماعی ایره امی زبان یاد بگیرن. ولی برمیگرده باز هم پرسش شما به متخصصین زبان ادبیات یا متخصصین از این حوزه که اونا باید پاسخ بدن. شما میفهمید که من تخصص زبان ادبیات ندارم و در کل میتونم بگویم که زبان باید به شکل علمی یاد گرفته شود. زبان باید به شکل تخصصی. وقتی به شکل علمی تخصصی میگیم اینمی زبان انگلیسی در هر جای، اگر در افغانستان یک استفاده کننده از این زبان یا گوینده از این سخن یا کلام صحبت میکنه اونم پس، یا در ایالات متحده آمریکا یا در یک کشور اروپایی، به می شکل ما میتونم پاسخ بدم.
برنامه که پتوی شما فرا گرفتین آیا پول شما پرداختین به کام جای یا همش رایگان بوده؟ طوری که آقای لو گفت که رایگان است بغیر از فی چند صد دلار که شما میپردازین رو دوباره میگیرین. آیا شما تمام برنامه را رایگان گرفتین؟
خب ما باید بگویم که در یک پرسش کوتاه میتونم بگم بله، هیچ پول را ما در این برنامه نپرداختیم. تمام درس‌هایی را که ما خواندیم این درس‌ها رایگان بود و در هیچ بخش مثلا پول چی نشد، یعنی یادآوری نشد. ولی من فکر میکنم که یک جای بالاخره پول گرفته که IRC پول از او را پرداخته. به خاطر این یک پروگرام بسیار قیمت آن بود. معلوم میشد که این پروگرام سرش بسیار کار صورت گرفته بود. مثلا همین تکستایی را که اینا بر ما روان میکردن در قالب مقاله یا در قالب همین مواد قانونی و مسائل مقررات اینا، من فکر میکنم جمع‌آوری از اونا و تهیه از اونا به شکل سلایدها یا به شکل ویدیوها و اینا بسیار از این بردار بوده. ولی ای که پول از این کی داده من تا حدود فکر میکنم که IRC پول از زیر داده، ولی من به عنوان یک کسی که این درس تکمیل کردم هیچ پول نپرداختیم.
آقای حکیم، مشوره شما با افغانای محترم ما چی است که چگونه میتونن زندگی خود آباد بکنن؟ آقای لوک گفت امید پل ارتباطی بین جامعه باشن و بین کمپانی ها باشن که کار پیدا بکنن و در جامعه خود با آرامی زندگی بکنن. امید پل ارتباطی که آقای لوک تشریح کرده از نگاه کاری، امیر چگونه در جامعه شما میبینین و در نگاه کاری چگونه میبینین؟
خب من بسیار خوشحال هستم که یک جامعه بسیار سرفراز و سربلند و نیک ما در ایالات متحده آمریکا داریم. فراموش نمی‌کنیم که چند تا حادثه‌ای که صورت گرفت اونام نقاط منفی بوده که صورت گرفته در ایالات متحده آمریکا، مثلا حادثات ترافیکی بوده یا مثلا حادثات حتی قتل بوده، ولی اونا اونقدر برجسته نیست که ما بالای از او صحبت بکنیم، چون در یک کشوری که مثلا در سطح هزاران نفر یا میلیون نفر زندگی میکنه همچون حوادث به شکل طبیعی یا نرمال اتفاق میفته. ولی من میخوایم بگویم که ما یک جامعه سربلند در اینجا داریم، یک جامعه نیک داریم، ولی ما چطور میتونیم که افغان کمیونیتی را یا جامعه افغانی را در ایالات متحده آمریکا بسیار مطلوب و بسیار پویا بسازیم و بسیار بتونیم که سرازی جامعه افغانی خود در اینجا افتخار بکنیم. به نظر من یک بخش از این برمیگرده به مقامات دولتی افغانستان که ماموریت رسمی در اینجا دارن، مثلا کنسولگری افغانستان، سفارت افغانستان، نمایندگی‌های سیاسی افغانستان. خب یک بخش دیگهش نهادهای بین‌المللی مثل IRC، مثل Sacramento Food Bank and Family Services و سایر بخش‌هایی که در این زمینه کار میکنن و شانه‌های از اونا برمیگرده که اینا او را عمل بکنن که چطور میتونن که جوامع را انسانی، مطلوب، پاک و بدور از ناهنجاری‌ها بسازن. در کل من میتونم در پیوند پرسش شما در رابطه با کوریر پاتوی یا برنامه IRC بگویم که افغان‌ها اگر میخواین که در بخش کاری خود یا در بخش رشته تحصیلی تخصصی خود کار بکنن، به نظر من نهاد IRC و برنامه کوریر پاتوی یک زمینه بسیار فوق‌العاده، یک زمینه که تمام دروازه ها را برویشان باز میکنه و اون به شکل رایگان. فقط یگانه زحمتی که شما میتونین بکشین امی است که یا باید بکشین امی است که شما باید درس بخونین و به شکل رایگان. شما ببینید در سطح دنیا برنامه‌ای که تدوین میشه یا پوانتون‌ها، دانشگاه، مراکز علمی، تعلیمی، تخصصی اینا ایجاد میشه، شما بخواین نخواین اینا پول بسیار گزاف هم از شما میگیرن. پول بسیار گزاف شما باید بالای علم و بالای بخش کاری زندگی شما باید هزینه بردین یا بگذارین که باز بر مبنای از اون شما در جامعه به شکل تخصصی کار بکنین. ولی IRC آمده اینمی کار به شکل رایگان مثلا انجام میده و با تاسف باید بگویم که آقای لوک جونسن گفتن که تا ماه اپریل این برنامه متوقف شده، ولی خوشبختانه میتونم بگویم که ما فقط فبروری و مارچ پیش روی داریم که به اپریل برسیم. فقط تا 2 ماه دیگه میشه که هموطنهای بسیار ارجمند ما، اهم از خواهرها و برادرای ما، سر از این فکر بکنن که کدام بخشا برشان بسیار موثر هستن، کدام بخشا برشان مفید هستن. بسیار راحت میتونن از IRC برن تمام بخشا را دریافت بکنن و یا از برنامه‌های شما تعقیب بکنن، شما را فالو بکنن و بر مبنای اون معلوماتی که شما ارائه میکنین اونا هم درس‌ها را یا کورس‌ها را یادداشت بگیرن، امو بخشایی را که علاقه دارن برن ثبت نام بکنن، طی مراحل اداری را انجام بدن و برن فرا بگیرن.
تشکر جناب آقای حکیم صابر. برنامه بعدی با بخش سارنولی و شاروال ساکرامنتو خواهد بود که شما را چرا که از ما کده بزرگتر هستین و صاحب پانتون یک دانشگاه مرکزی علمی در افغانستان هستین، نظر شما بسیار محترم است با ما و همین تحلیلی که شما میکنین همین بسیار ارزش بالایی داره. تشکر ای جان و شما را برنامه با مصاحبه که با شاروال ساکرامنتو خواهم داشت هفته آینده یا دیگر هفته شما را در میمون برنامه خواهم داشتیم. تشکر جان از وقتتان.
خواهش میکنم و قدردانی میکنم از زحماتی که شما میکشین. در راهتون برکت و موفق باشین.
تشکر جان. تشکر. خداحافظ.